This is the Comics Alternative, episode 238, a look at the May Previews catalog. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative. I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy, and we're two guys with PhDs talking about comics.
And on this week's episode, Andy and I are going to look through the May Previews catalog. But before we get to that discussion, we want to let all of you know that this episode of the Comics Alternative is brought to you by the great folks at Discount Comic Book Service. Go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. There, you're going to find all DC, Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse titles at 40% off of the cover price if you pre-order. For all of the other publishers, you'll find that those discounts can be 20 to 35% off cover price. And every single month, you're going to find some unbelievable specials. Sometimes those specials could be as much as 45% off cover price. Sometimes 50% off of the cover, but you know, at times you can even find discounts that are more impressive than that.
That's right, and since this is our previews episode, you can guess that a lot of the stuff we talk about today is going to be deeply discounted at dcbservice.com.
That's right. It's a way to get your comics and feel good about yourself because you're saving money. That's dcbservice.com. You got to go there for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do get your titles there, please drop them an email and tell them that the two guys with PhDs sent you.
That's right.
Well, Andy, we are on the verge of Free Comic Book Day. Do you have any plans for this coming Saturday?
No, I don't. In fact, I don't think I'm going anywhere for Free Comic Book Day this year. So we'll see what we can, what I can get a hold of, maybe online or through Comixology later on.
Yeah. I'm going to, as I have for the past several years, I'm going to be hanging out for a while at my local shop, which is Valhalla Games and Comics. And if everything goes according to plan, I will record an on-location show there on Free Comic Book Day.
Great.
Yep. But before we get into the core of this week's episode, which is a look at the May Previews catalog, let's share with our listeners some correspondence that we have received.
Okay.
Mail time. Ooh, the mail's here. That means we get to see our old friend, Mailbox.
Now, this is something that we got a little more than a week ago from Nick Bujak via our Facebook account, and we forgot to share it last week, and so I wanted to make sure and do it on this episode. And Nick writes, he's responding to our conversation of Ron Reger Jr.'s What Parzival Saw 2 weeks ago. He says, "Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that you were stuck between liking What Parzival Saw or taking What Parzival Saw seriously without thinking or understanding why someone would think it was very good. I came away from your discussion thinking that it wouldn't be worthwhile to pick it up if I didn't already ascribe to Reger Jr.'s idiosyncratic beliefs." And then he follows up with, "For what it's worth, I'm a Reger fan, but I'm not someone who subscribes to his philosophy. I've been trying to think about whether his idiosyncratic approach to comics, etc., especially lettering, has anything to do with the philosophy his comics are expressive of. I'm not totally sure how to answer that question, but it's where my thinking is right now." And, you know, I think Nick was onto something when you and I were discussing What Parzival Saw. You know, we appreciated the text, but I think, as you pointed out, it may not be for everyone if they've never seen any of Reger's work before.
Right. And I don't know how much, to appreciate a lot of his stuff, like especially the stuff we had talked about before that's appeared in the Best American Comics series. How much you really even need to know about what is kind of going on behind the scenes with his philosophy. But but yeah, I mean, I don't know if I were going to recommend Roger Jr.'s stuff to somebody, I don't know if I would say what Parsifal Saw is the place to start.
Right. And I like what Nick says toward the end of his comments, where he's speculating about his art style and how it may be linked to Roger's philosophy. He says, I'm not sure how to answer that question, which is, I think, the way that you and I felt as we were discussing this, where, we liked it, we appreciated it, but it's a different text to wrap your brain around.
Right.
Yep. So thank you, Nick, for writing us via Facebook. And we do like hearing from everyone, whether it be on Facebook, Twitter, email, or any means, really. So keep those cards and letters coming, folks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, let's jump into this month's previews catalog, and we're going to begin at the very beginning, which is always a good place to start, I guess, with the Dark Horse section. And where do you begin with Dark Horse?
I don't know. I jump around in Dark Horse a lot, so if you have a place to start, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, I start at the very beginning, and this is on page 44. This is the Moebius library, The Art of Edena. This is a companion piece to The World of Edena, the first book in Dark Horse's Moebius library, which came out several months ago. And in fact, that's one that Edward and I discussed on our Euro Comics episode. And this is, I guess, includes some art and shorter stories that revolve around his World of Edena. It looks interesting. I don't know if it's something that I'm going to get. I really liked The World of Edena, but I don't know if The Art of Edena, this follow-up, is something that I'm going to invest in.
Yeah, I was on the fence about whether to even put this on my list. That's why I kind of asked for you to start, because I figured you may have said something about, may have wanted to say something about it. And the thing that puts me on the fence about it is that I would like to know just how much of this volume's 176 pages is taken up with these 4 short stories that are set in the World of Edena.
Right.
And if they're really, really short stories, and then most of this is an art book, well, I mean, Moebius's art is beautiful to look at, but I don't know if if I would, especially if I were planning on getting other volumes of the Moebius library, if this would be one I would seek out before other stuff.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And in fact, Edward knows someone who, well, she no longer works for Dark Horse, but she used to, and she was helping to oversee the Moebius library. And Edward shared a correspondence that he had with her just recently, where he was asking a question that Edward and I posed on our Eurocomic show, where we discussed the World of Edena, is what are the next volumes for Dark Horse's Moebius's library. And this friend of Edward's did mention that it was an art book with some story, not much. Mm-hmm. And from the tone of her response, it seemed that it was mostly just an art book, not much in terms of story, which is fine for what it is. It's just that I don't know, kind of like you, if that's something that I would want to get.
Right.
Yeah. But it's worth mentioning if you did pick up the World of Edena and you enjoyed it, and especially if you love Moebius's art, then the Art of Edena may be for you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my other concern is that if those 4 stories turn out to be actually really short, then why not just include them in that first volume?
Right. Yeah, I got the sense from, again, this acquaintance or this friend of Edward's, that Dark Horse may not be entirely certain yet exactly what's going to be in future volumes of the Moebius library, but I guess we'll see over time.
Yep.
And then after that, I go to the next page, I guess more in passing than anything, on page 45. This is a solicit for Frank Miller and Jeff Darrow's Hard Boiled. And this is not a new book, but it's a second edition. It's a new edition. So if you're a fan of either Miller or Darrow, and or if you liked this book and you want a new hardbound edition, then you can check out the solicit on page 45.
Yeah, and that's a book I like a lot. So
Now, I next go to page 55. Do you have anything before that?
No.
Okay. And this is something is interesting. I was going to ask you about, Andy. Rick Remender's The End League. Now, this is a library edition of this series. And I'm not familiar with The End League. Do you know about it?
I read the first issue when it came out. And it was coming out at a time when there were a lot of these kind of Justice League type analogs out there, especially, or, Justice League or Marvel superheroes or whatever analogs. And it was, around the same time as I was reading, The Authority and Planetary and stuff like that. So I didn't, I read the first issue and didn't think that it offered anything at that point that was that dramatically different from what I was getting in, say, Mark Miller or Warren Ellis's work. So I didn't pursue it any further.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I'm familiar with, Planetary and The Authority. This, though, I don't think I've read even one issue. So that's why I wanted to ask you your thoughts on this. But, Dark Horse does a really good job, as we've noted on the show multiple times, with their collected editions, especially something like this that they're calling their library edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it says the whole 9-issue series in this large volume.
And I go to page 57 after that.
Yeah, that's where I am.
The Mr. X, the Modern Age trade paperback.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to?
Yeah. So, this is something actually. I mean, I don't like to say on the previews episodes that I want to review something, because then I feel like I'm locked into it. And then when we get really hammered with a bunch of stuff to review, I'm like, oh crap. But this is something I would really like to review, the Mr. X, the Modern Age, which collects all of the Dark Horse Mr. X material. So the earlier stuff from Vortex and what have you isn't going to be in here. Right. But Dean Motter did a reboot of the Mr. X series anyway at about the time he moved it over to Dark Horse. So I don't know how much that other stuff is necessary, and a lot of it is kind of compromised by issues that were going on behind the scenes with the creative teams that were working on it, and with Vortex as well. So I think that the best of the Mr. X stuff is in this volume.
Okay. Now, I know the Dark Horse has also come out with that earlier Mr. X stuff several years ago. They had a really nice collection of that. And also, I think it was last year, a nice hardbound collection of Motter's Terminal City. Last year, this book, Mr. X, The Modern Age, actually came out in hard copy.
Right.
And it was at least $100, which was out of my price range. And so as much as I would have liked to have gotten it, I didn't. I'm with you on this trade paperback. It's much more affordable. It's $29.99. And if we can maybe find a time once it comes out in September and review it on the show, I'd love to.
Yeah. It's good stuff. I didn't keep up with all of the Dark Horse miniseries, unfortunately. So I think I read Condemned. I know that I read that for sure. And so, but it would be nice to see these all in one place. And I think, did you read the original Mr. X series?
Not all the way through, but some of them, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you've got, it's a shame to say that there's, that it's not as great a series as one would hope, because if you look at who was working on that, you have Gilbert and Jaime Hernandez during the first few issues.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have some fill-ins by different artists. Then you have Seth doing about the last half of the series or so. And then there's a couple other miniseries that were done by other or at least one miniseries. I don't know how much other stuff that was done by other creators that didn't seem to have Dean Motter's involvement. And I don't know that much about those, but to look at that early work by the Hernandez brothers and by Seth is fun on its own, even if the series was, like I said, compromised by some of the stuff going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where do you go next?
62.
Okay. Before we go there, I had something on page 60, and I'm unfamiliar with these creators, but this book is Lifeformed. Cleo Makes Contact. It's written by Matt Mayer-Lowry with art by Cassie Anderson. And the solicit reads, in the wake of an alien invasion and her father's death, a young girl must fight for the future of Earth. Aided by a shape-shifting rebel alien posing as her father, the unlikely pair bond, fight back, and ponder what it means to be human. This looks interesting, and I wanted to point it out, I guess, for a couple reasons. One, I'm not sure about the creative team, and I didn't know if you knew either of these individuals. But also, this is something that it strikes me that Gwen and Paul may want to consider for their young readers show.
Sure. Yeah. I had initially thought about listing this, and then I don't know, this is kind of snotty of me, but I saw the solicit say a young adult sci-fi adventure starring a relatable, endearing young heroine, and there's the cover as this girl kind of scowling while at the audience, and I thought, so that's our endearing, relatable young heroine. And so anyway, maybe. I think I thought about that. I thought about the young adult show too when I saw that.
Okay. But then on page 62.
Yeah, on page 62, and it's probably just worth mentioning in passing that we get yet another new Gru miniseries, Gru Play of the Gods, by, of course, Sergio Aragonis and Mark Evanier. This looks like a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I love Gru. I go way back with Gru. So,
it's interesting because I know of Gru, but I've never really read or gotten into Gru. And I think because I didn't toward the beginning, and it just seems a little imposing to jump in now, even though I usually could. I just haven't yet.
Right. Yeah. I don't really know how much you need to be invested in the Gru continuity. I think once you kind of figure out that Gru is just a terrible barbarian who's actually the worst person in every Gru story, then you kind of get where the humor's coming from.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's fun. And that's all I have in Dark Horse, unless you have something else.
Yeah, I've got one other thing, and this is on page 65. This is the Colder Omnibus. It's a trade paperback and written by Paul Tobin with art by Juan Ferreira. And I read the first Colder narrative arc, but nothing after that. And it's been a long time. And I can't tell you exactly what happened, but I do know that I enjoyed it when I did read that first arc. And so that's why I'm mentioning it now. If you're a fan of colder, then you got this nice paperback omnibus. It's just $24.99, which seems like a pretty good price, and you can get a decent discount at DCB Service, and it makes it even more affordable.
Yeah. I just can't look at that cover.
It is gross. And I remember when that first issue way back several years ago came out, you and I commented on the grossness of it.
Yep.
And for those who are wondering what we're talking about, who can't recall this image, basically it is an image of a guy who looks blue, like he is really, really cold, who is sticking a couple of fingers in his mouth, and it goes up through his skin, and one of his fingers is protruding out one of his eyeballs.
Yep.
And of course, there's blood.
There sure is.
So I hope that none of you guys listening were eating as I was describing that.
Yeah, I just ate. That was bad. I wanted to skip. I was hoping we would skip over that.
Okay. You should have let me know before we turned the mic on.
Yeah, I forgot it was even there.
I would have still mentioned it, though.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay. Yeah, so that, do you have any more in Dark Horse?
That's it.
Then when we go to DC, I actually have a few things in the DC proper section.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I've got one thing in DC proper and then one thing in Vertigo. So what do you have?
So I go to first, I just want to mention what's on page 111. Even though this is definitely a superhero thing, but the Batman 66 meets the Legion of Superheroes miniseries, or it's a one shot, I guess. That's even better then. Written by Lee Allred and drawn by Michael Allred. I mean, the idea of Michael Allred doing Batman 66 and the Legion of Superheroes is is something I'm really, really looking forward to. I love, of course, Allred's art, and his kind of retro look will be great with both of those properties. So I think this is going to be a neat idea, and I'm looking forward to that. And now I actually didn't realize it was a one shot, so that I'm kind of glad for, because even though I would buy a 6-issue miniseries or whatever, it's easier on the pocketbook.
Mm-hmm. I didn't read the solicit. So in the solicit, it does say this is a one shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they fight Universo.
Okay.
So anyway, and then I go to 136.
Okay. And that is, well, almost where I go, but
yeah. And that's just also mentioning that there's that DC is continuing that Jack Kirby library series with the volume 2 of the Newsboy Legion. So I'm really glad that's coming out.
Yeah. What was the first volume?
Newsboy Legion.
So okay, so and when was that solicited? Because I had forgotten about that apparently.
Oh no, they haven't. I don't think they've put out a book in that Jack Kirby library for a while. So I have most of them. I think I'm missing the Losers and maybe I'm missing one of the other Golden Age ones. Anyway, but they've done a volume of Sandman, a volume of Boy Commandos,
right?
Now the Newsboy Legion, and then they've done pretty much all of Kirby's DC stuff from the Fourth World on, with the exception of the Justice Incorporated series he did, because DC doesn't have the rights to that. So anyway, these are pretty nice volumes. They're pretty big for what you get, and so I hope we'll see more of them, because there's a bunch of Golden Age stuff that Joe Simon and Jack Kirby did for DC that could probably fit into another, a volume of its own. The things that they didn't do for very long, but Sandman, Newsboy Legion, and Boy Commandos are really the three big series that they did for DC.
Well, on that next page is something in DC I wanted to mention, and this is another one of those omnibus collections. This is Swamp Thing, The Bronze Age. It's a big old hardcover, 928 pages. So it is hefty, and the price is hefty too. They're listing it for $99.99. It's out of my price range, but as Hemingway wrote, isn't it pretty to think so that I would be able to afford something like this? But it would be nice. It takes the Bronze Age Swamp Thing, so you got the Len Wein, the Conway, the Wrightson, and it's something to put on a wish list.
Yeah, it's interesting what it's including in this. That it's got the 24 issues of the original Swamp Thing series that started with Wein and Wrightson. But then it also includes the first 19 issues of Saga of the Swamp Thing.
Right.
Which I thought is interesting to have because I wouldn't mind a volume of that 1 through 24 series from the 70s, and then a separate volume of the early Saga stuff, but they're putting it all in one book. And this basically goes up to, if it's Saga of the Swamp Thing 1 through 19, then it goes up to the Alan Moore first issue. So I'm guessing then that there might be a Alan Moore Swamp Thing omnibus if there isn't already one.
Well, they have that series of really nice hardbound editions,
right?
And I can't remember how many volumes in that. They can probably create an omnibus or two from all of those. This Bronze Age omnibus also includes House of Secrets 92 as well, in addition to the other things that you mentioned.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, it'd be great to have. I just don't think I can justify the price.
Yeah, I mean, and if I think about it, I have everything in this in some form or another. House of Secrets 92 has been reprinted a jillion times,
right? And
then I have the individual issues of the first Swamp Thing series, and I have all of the Swamp Thing issues that are listed in there. So there you go. Don't need it.
Yeah. And then the only other thing I have in the DC Vertigo section is on page 140.
Yeah.
And this is American Way, Those Above and Those Below, #1. And what was it, 2 months ago that we noted in the Previews catalog that they're coming out with another edition, or I guess a reprint of the first American Way collection, which is really good. We commented on how we both really enjoyed that series, and we'd even discussed that they were going to bring back the American Way. And here you go, the first issue of John Ridley and George Gente's new series.
Yeah, and when we were talking about the End League earlier, the American Way is yet another one of those. Series that serves as a kind of alternate reality analog to the regular DC superheroes or Marvel superheroes of that it existed earlier, and making kind of commentary on the politics of the day in relationship to a world with superheroes. And so this moves the American Way series into the 1970s.
Okay, so let's go to IDW. I can tell you right now, I don't have many things toward the first part of IDW, but as we get into it, toward the back part of the IDW section, I've got quite a number.
Yeah, I start at 170, so if you have anything before then.
Oh, yeah, that's where I start as well.
Okay, and I start with 170 also because this, when we talked about the American Way collection, we talked about the idea that it might be coming back as a miniseries. And one of the things that we talked about a few months ago when Saucer State started from IDW is IDW going to also put out Saucer Country? Mm-hmm. And now they are. So on page 170, we've got the trade collection of all 14 issues of the Saucer Country series by Paul Cornell and Ryan Kelly. So you can check that out if you're getting into the sequel. Right.
Yeah, and also solicited right next to it is issue number 3 of Saucer State. Mm-hmm. Now, I never got I got the original individual issues of Saucer Country, but I never got any of the trades just because I didn't get I didn't get the trades because I had the individual issues. But the Vertigo trades, they collected Saucer Country in 2 volumes. Each one had 7 issues. But this collects, as you mentioned, all 14 in one. Mm-hmm. So if you missed out on Saucer Country first time around with Vertigo, now you can get it in one shot.
Yep. Yeah, and it's interesting to see a bunch of these, see how like Vertigo series come back from other publishers, because we do have, I think, at least one more in this previews. Mm-hmm.
I go next to page 174 if you have anything before that.
Well, I wanted to stop at 172 for a second here, where this Dread Gods #1.
Okay.
Written by Ron Mars with art by Tom Rainey and Bart Sears. And the reason I stop at this is because this is being advertised as the first issue of a new new imprint within IDW called Ominous Press. Do you know anything about this?
I do not. I didn't even notice that until you mentioned it, and I see in the solicit at the very beginning, it says Ominous Press launches with the first of 3 limited series.
Yeah, so I'm not. I haven't heard anything about this. I'd like to see more of a kind of mission statement here about what Ominous Press is going to be. Looks like it's setting up a superhero universe that. Maybe it's going to be, I don't know, if it's overseen by Ron Mars and Bart Sears, or how this is going to work. So, I'm just curious to know what's going to go on with that.
Yeah, and we're on IDW's email list for media, and we didn't get, that I can recall, any news about Ominous Press.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then you go to 175?
Yes. And 175 is now we have the completion of Fred Van Lente and Ryan Dunleavy's comic book History of Comics, and this collected volume is called Birth of a Medium. And I don't think that's what the subtitle was for the first black and white comic book History of Comics. But if our listeners recall, I guess it was more than a year ago, IDW started to, or maybe a year ago, IDW started to reprint the individual issues of Van Lente and Dunleavy's comic book History of Comics, but this time in color, because it had originally been in black and white. And it had been collected in black and white. Now, after they, I guess, have gone through all the reprints of the issues in color, now they come out expectedly with a trade of the comic book History of Comics.
Yep.
Yeah. And, I don't know how, if at all, this color edition, outside of the color, of course, would be different from the original.
Yeah, I didn't pick up those individual issues of the color version to know if there were big differences, because I already had the trade collection of the original series. So, so I'm not sure. But this is something I've toyed with and using in a class. So, I might I would take a look at this anyway. It's coming out, it says, in August.
Just in time for classes.
Just in time for classes, but probably not in time for my bookstore to be able to deal with ordering it. So, because they don't do well with ordering books that are not in print yet.
Oh.
And plus, I wouldn't want to take a chance that it might be delayed for some reason. Anyway, that would screw them up completely. So anyway, but I use sections of that anyway in class.
Okay.
And then I go to 175.
I do too. Time and Vine #1.
Yeah. So Tom Zoller, who did Love and Capes, has a new series called Time and Vine, which a grade school history teacher looking for a respite from her life's problems finds the ultimate escape when the owner of a local winery reveals its secret to her: drink the right glass of wine in the right tasting room and travel back in time to the year it was bottled. Together, they'll journey through the history of the 200-year-old winery as well as their own. That seems really nice. I think Tom Zoller is really good at doing, fantasy romantic stories that have fantasy elements to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this could be really good.
Yeah, well, I mean, relationships in general. You mentioned Love and Capes, and the one that he did previously, and I never got around to reading, but it's on my to-read list. Long Distance. Did you read that?
No, no. But I was a fan
really
of
good things
Love
about that.
Okay, yeah, I was a fan of Love and Capes, so I had forgotten that Long Distance even existed.
Yeah. And that was, I can't remember how many individual issues, maybe 4, and then they collected it, I believe, last year.
Mm-hmm.
And Zoller is at HeroesCon every now and again, right?
Yeah, and I think he's on the guest list for this year, too.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go after page 175?
178.
Oh, yeah. I do as well. The top shelf section.
Yeah, and this is something we were told was going to happen. Shannon Wheeler, shit my president says, the illustrated tweets of Donald Trump.
Yeah, and the solicit is, the first part of it is telling. FDR had radio, JFK had TV, Trump has Twitter. And so basically what Wheeler does here is to take Donald Trump's actual tweets and illustrates them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And this is not the only Trump-related text that is in this catalog. I believe, isn't somewhere the Mad About... in the DC section, I guess, yes. Mad About Trump special.
Right.
Yeah. So as if we didn't get enough of our quote-unquote president in other media, now we get him in our comics.
Yep. And then I go to 179. That's the next page. With Space Bat and the Fugitives. Book 1, Tacos at the End of the World by Chris Sheridan. Chris Sheridan, who we've talked about before with Motorcycle Samurai. So I've been looking forward to seeing what he was going to do next. So this looks like a lot of fun.
This is yet another example of you bringing up something that I completely breezed by. Because I had something on 179. I was going to mention the trade of Superfuckers Forever that I've been looking forward to. And because I was focused on that, I didn't even pay attention to Space Bat and the Fugitives, which is strange because it takes up much more space on that page.
Yeah.
And I just overlooked the fact that Sheridan was doing this, but you can tell that this is the art of Motorcycle Samurai as well. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm excited for Superfuckers Forever too.
Mm-hmm.
But I do sort of resent James Kochalka because he makes me swear in class. Because I was talking about teaching a unit on autobiographical comics, and we were talking about diary comics, and I had to show American Elf, and some students were asking what else did he do, and I said, well, he's got a comic called Super Fuckers. I'm sorry I had to say that.
Yeah, well, see, you could say super effers. You just want to say fuckers in class.
I don't want to. That's the thing. But I'm a stickler for accuracy.
Okay. Well, then, how do you pronounce the little the asterisk there?
Oh, I mean, it's a U. I mean, even if you drop off the asterisk, it's still fuckers. So
that would be more accurate.
Yeah,
phonetically. Okay, if we go to that next page, 180, we get into the Yo Book section, and Craig has yet another interesting collection. This one on Jungle Girls.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this book. In fact, if there was ever a book I would have liked to have worked on with Craig Yo, it would have been a collection of Jungle Girls books, comics. So I'm really curious. Because it doesn't list exact. It says that there's going to be art by Frank Frazetta, Matt Baker, Maurice Whitman, and L.B. Cole, but it doesn't say which of the Jungle Girls are going to be covered here, because there were a ton of them. It seems like almost every publisher had their own version of Sheena, Queen of the Jungle.
Right. Well, we can talk with Craig more about this in another month and a half, because he's going to be at Heroes Con.
Right.
We'd even toyed with the possibility of interviewing him again on the show before Heroes Con, so who knows? We could be talking with him sooner rather than later.
Sure.
And if we turn the page, 181, there are a couple of things worth mentioning. First, we have the next in the Corto Maltese collection. This volume is the Fable of Venice, so that's good. But there's also a solicit right next to it, R. Crumb, From the Underground to Genesis, and this is, I guess, the catalog text from the Modern Art Museum of the City of Paris, their exhibition. And so I guess they're doing with this what they did not too long ago with the Will Eisner Centennial.
Yeah.
And that was a big-sized book.
Yeah, I had that noted.
And then you turn the page, and there are two other things. I mean, again, as I said, there's a lot in the back part of the IDW section that I think is really worth discussing. And it's their collections, right? Their anthologies and such. On page 182, we have The Art of the Pulps, an illustrated history. And this looks really interesting. Says, team of experts in each of the 10 major pulp genres, from action pulps to spicy pulps and more. Chart for the first time the complete history of pulp magazines, the stories and their writers, the graphics and their artists, and of course the publishers, their market, and readers. So that's good. And then right next to it is a book and a creator I'm not familiar with. The title of this is A Story of Men, and the artist and writer is Zepp. Now, do you know who Zepp is?
No.
I do not either, but this is certified cool, so it must be if Previews says it is, if Diamond says, hey, it's certified cool. It says an original graphic novel. The last time that the rock group Tricky Fingers found themselves in the same spot was 18 years ago for a concert in the BBC studios that was supposed to launch their career, but instead ended in catastrophe. Since then, this group of friends that once harbored dreams of revolutionizing rock had parted ways, most drifting into musical obscurity. Except Sandro, his initiative brings the group together for the weekend to find out where life has taken them, how their fortunes have fared, to see if they've learned anything since they were teenagers.
Yeah, I had that mark too. I'm curious about that. I like that idea for a story. So I'm on board for that. One of the things I'm wondering about with this book, though, that I'm wondering about, there's several other books in this catalog that are doing this, and I've noticed this happening a lot lately. This book is 64 pages, but it's hardcover.
Mm-hmm.
For $20. I know earlier in Dark Horse we had skipped over the new Black Beetle book by Francavilla, and that one's 56 pages in hardcover. And the Street Angel, there's a new Street Angel book in here, but the one we talked about too on the episode the other day, both of those are also hardcover graphic novels for, with 60 or 64 pages.
Right.
And so I'm curious about that trend. I mean, this could be a $5 square bound paperback. Yet they're releasing these in hardcover for a pretty high price point.
Yeah, it is. And I don't think that's anything we mentioned last week when we discussed Street Angel, Kung Fu After School Special, or After School Kung Fu Special, that it was a hardbound. And I guess because I had forgotten about it being a hardbound book, because you and I were going from a PDF.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope it's not a trend.
Well, I mean, there's I think three of them at least that I can think of in this issue by some of the big publishers. So I'm not sure what the value of that is, but I mean, except that it does make some money, and it can go on a shelf and be sold in a bookstore better than say a $5 square bound paperback. So
right, and also it approximates European albums.
Yeah, that's true too.
So, I mean, if publishers are thinking that something like this may give some, perhaps if they want to put it this way, legitimacy to the texts, to give it a sense of gravitas and literal heft, right? Because it's going to weigh more than, and maybe other reasons.
Well, that makes sense.
As well. Yeah,
that actually makes sense because this book is 9.25 by 12.25, so that makes it the size of a European album as well, and Zepp is French, so maybe this is just duplicating an original publication. So maybe I shouldn't complain or say anything more about that.
Well, and that takes us actually to the next page or two, the last part of the IDW section, because I'm wondering if Zepp's A Story of Men is part of their Eurocomics imprint. It doesn't seem to be because there's not the Eurocomics stamp on it, but it comes right before one of the texts that we see solicited on 183, which is Jérôme Blôche, Volume 1, The Shadow Killers. Now, this is definitely part of the Eurocomics series. Mm-hmm. It is also hardcover and 8.5 by 11, and it is also around the same size as Story of Men. So 6 pages, this one. Yeah. I mean, this is something that I know that, well, we could obviously talk about it on a regular show, but Edward and I could also discuss it on the Eurocomics show. Mm-hmm. And then right beside that is another hardcover, although this has more pages, 152. It's called Behind You, One-Shot Horror Stories. Mm-hmm.
By Brian Koldrick.
Mm-hmm. With an introduction by Joe Hill.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the cover looks creepy.
Yeah, the cover does look creepy. And so it's a series of horror stories, comic that has no panels, which each piece is essentially a separate story. Mm-hmm. Each tale is one image and one piece of text. An unsuspecting victim with someone or something behind them. That's it. So literally creepy. The title Behind You is just a series of images, 152 pages, as it says, full of scary setups, but leaves lots of blanks for the reader to fill in. That is an interesting idea for a collection.
Mm-hmm. It started as a webcomic too.
Yeah, it feels like it should be like that would have been something I would have read as a teenager alongside, something like oh crap, what's the guy's name? Who did Amphigory?
I don't know.
Oh, Edward Gorey.
Okay.
Edward Gorey.
Okay.
That kind of, because I'm with the mixture of kind of horror and humor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then I go to the next page.
Yep, I do too.
And the first thing on there is Joe Lansdale and UC Piranen's Hap and Leonard Savage Season, which is based on the TV series on Sundance, Hap and Leonard, or I'm not sure. I've read Joe Lansdale before, but I don't know if Hap and Leonard is a series of books that he's done.
I think it is, yeah. Novels.
And this is going to be a TV series on Sundance. So this is the basis for the first season of the Sundance series.
Yeah. Now, I'm wondering if this may also be part of the Eurocomics series. It doesn't have the Eurocomics image with it, but the illustrator, UC Pironen, I don't know if he's French, but I know that he, I've seen his work referenced within a translation somewhere. So, so I don't know if this has appeared, let's say in French previously, and now it's being translated to English, which, it wouldn't be the first time that an English speaker has written a comic or let's say an album in French and then it being, and illustrated by a French artist and then being translated into English.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. The much of that hard case crime series from Titan has been like that.
Right.
And then next to that is Sax Rohmer's Dope by Trina Robbins. Now, this is part of It's Alive. And Sax Rohmer, Trina's adaptation of Sax Rohmer's Dope originally appeared in Eclipse Comics, I think in Eclipse Monthly. I think I have most of what was published in that. Did you ever read this before?
No, but I backed this project on Kickstarter.
Oh, good.
I just didn't get a copy yet.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been sent out.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically what this is an adaptation, Trina Robbins' adaptation of Sax Rohmer's 1919 novel about drug culture in the early 20th century. And it was a beautiful series. I mean, I read it, I was like, I don't know, 13 or 14 years old when it originally came out in Eclipse Monthly, and I remember, really being blown away by it then. So I'm looking forward to it finally being collected like this.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else on IDW?
Nope.
Neither do I. So let's move on over to Image. And as always, there are a lot of number one issues of ongoing and even miniseries. Not all of them I'm overly excited about. Maybe more interested or curious about them than anything. Of this grouping of number ones, which ones really stand out to you?
I've got a ton of stuff in Image
that
I marked, but the first two that show up here, Moonstruck, which is by Grace Ellis and Shea Beagle, and Kate Leth. Oh well, Kate Leth did a short story in this, but Grace Ellis, who's one of the creators of Lumberjanes, And this, as the description says, fantasy creatures are living typical, unremarkable lives alongside humans, and barista Julie strives to be the most unremarkable of all. Normal job, normal almost girlfriend, normal werewolf transformations that happen when she gets upset. Yikes. So this is
that wasn't your yikes. That yikes was in the solicit.
Yeah. And so people seeing Moonstruck may have been like me initially, hoping that this was going to be finally we're going to see the comic adaptation of the great Nicolas Cage and Cher romantic comedy. It's a movie I love, but no, Moonstruck seems to be actually a little bit more literal here which is the protagonist being a werewolf trying to live a normal life. So, I think that this looks like it has a lot of potential to be a fun, quirky series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. This is one of those new series, or a number one in this month's Image section, that I felt lukewarm about. And I mean, the premise does sound interesting, but it's nothing new to me. It just seemed to be something that we could have come to expect from any number of publishers or creators. And so I guess that's why it didn't stand out to me. And I'm also wondering if maybe this would be something that would fit into more with what Boom Studios has been doing over the past few years in terms of their audience target than we find with Image. But even if this is for the same audience that a lot of Boom Studio books are, I mean, why shouldn't Image attempt to reach the same?
Yeah. And, with the success of Lumberjanes at Boom, it's good to see Grace Ellis working on a series here for Image, and the art, when we get 4 sample pages of Shea Beagle's art, is really nice. So I'm gonna check that out.
Okay, so you're gonna check out the next one, Sacred Creatures #1?
I might. I'm just really curious about it because it's co-written by Pablo Raimondi and Klaus Janson, with art by Pablo Raimondi, and I don't recall Klaus Janson doing a lot of writing in comics in the past, so I'll be curious to see how this goes. And I like Pablo Raimondi's art, so from his work on Marvel. So there is, the description, when the supernatural forces maintaining the fragile balance of power in this world start to unravel. Josh Miller, which is also the name of one of my students, a young college grad and expectant father, is caught in the middle of a vast conspiracy threatening to tear apart the foundations of humanity as we know it. As myth and reality collide, Josh finds himself on the front line of a battle against an enemy dating back to the beginning of time itself. I mean, again, this, somewhat like what you said with the previous book, that sounds like it could be a number of other books.
Yeah, that
we've seen before. So I'm more curious about it to see how Klaus Janson works as a writer and the art.
Yeah, and you're right. When you read the solicit, you reminded me of why this is also one of those #1 issues in Image that I felt lukewarm about originally when I was looking through the catalog. Again, it seems like something that we could find almost anywhere, and that we've seen a number of times before. Of course, another way of interpreting my feeling here about both Moonstruck #1 and Sacred Creatures #1, maybe I'm getting cynical. Just getting too cynical, or maybe when I looked over this catalog, I was just feeling kind of grumbly and curmudgeon-y.
Well, we've said this before, and I think this is have been happening to me, that I've reached a kind of critical mass with Image, where I'm probably reading right now as many ongoing series from Image as I can handle in a month, both budget wise and just in terms of like paying attention. So it's happening more and more that I try out the first issue, and if I like it, I will get the trade. I will switch to the trades, but I'm getting more and more selective about which books that I'm going to be reading from month to month.
Yeah.
And a lot of that will depend on my investment in the creators. So like, Jeff Lemire's Royal City and Kyle Starks's a Rock Candy Mountain are series I'm gonna, or the latest series I'm gonna stick with from issue to issue. But for a lot of this stuff, I'll probably be waiting for a trade.
Mm-hmm. Now, number one that I feel a little more excited about is on the next page, 198, and this is Generation Gone, number one. This is written by Alice Cott and Andre Lima Araujo, with art by Andre Lima Araujo. Mm-hmm. And I'm not familiar with Araujo, and I may be mispronouncing that name, but I do appreciate Alice Cott's writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so this is about young
hackers
who get superpowers, poor, angry. What happens when you're poor, angry, and get superpowers you never asked for? Mm-hmm. And that seems to be right up the kind of thing that you would expect from Alice Cott.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And where do you go next in the image section?
202.
Yes. And this is the thing that I think I'm most interested in this month's image section.
Okay.
By chance or providence, it's a trade paperback by Becky Cloonan, and this in essence collects her, I guess they're self-published, Wolves, the Mire, and Demeter. And you and I discussed it was the Mire and Demeter a few years ago, didn't we?
Right.
Yeah, and I think it was right after Heroes Con 2013, because I think that's where we got copies from Cloonan herself of Demeter.
Yeah, that's correct. And and I've read all three of them. These are really good. It doesn't say, it just says an award-winning trilogy, but one of those issues won the Eisner Award.
It did?
I think, or maybe it was a different. No, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Anyway, these are great stories. Really show off Cloonan, not only Cloonan's art, but her writing, especially in the fantasy settings that these books take place. I love all three of those books. So if you weren't ever able to get those three self-published books, then this anthology is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, and you mentioned self-published. I mean, that's the reason why I think most excited about this than anything else in Image, just because, I mean, these are things that these three stories would be ones that if you didn't know about them, then, when they, I mean, maybe if you ran into Becky Cloonan at a con or she was selling these, you may discover them. But otherwise, no. I mean, how would you? And so a publisher like Image picking up these three and collecting them in a trade makes them much more visible, much more accessible. And these are great stories that I think all of our listeners should definitely check out.
Yep. And I don't have anything till 208. So if you have anything before then, go ahead.
Nope.
Okay. I guess I'm most excited then in the Image section for what's on 208, which is that we're finally getting the third volume of Matt Wagner's Mage trilogy. Now, Mage, the Hero Denied. Did you read Matt Wagner's Mage when it originally came out?
I did not.
Okay. Well, this was one of those series. I mean, this is one of those early, early in the direct market eras where I think Matt Wagner had been doing Grendel, and then he put out Mage, I think originally from Comico, and then I think later from Image. I can't remember what I think Image put out the second volume, the Hero, whatever it is, Hero Defined, I think. And so it's been a long time since we've had a Mage series, and this third one's been promised for a while. So this is, the story of Kevin Matchstick, who basically discovers that he is the next King Arthur. That's and it goes through that that kind of arc of his heroic journey. Go ahead.
Well, no, 209, they solicit the first volume, Mage, the Hero Discovered.
Right. And this, it says 224 pages, so that's going to just be part of that series, because I think that went 15 or so issues. So, so it's good that Image is reprinting the Mage series alongside of the new volume of the trilogy. So I'm not sure, I don't think it says how many issues this one's going to be. But anyway, a Mage retrospect would also be something I'd love to do. Go back and reread all those issues, because it is a really good series.
Okay, I may have to check that out then, because I did not read it originally when it came out.
Mm-hmm. Now on 210, did you read this originally when it came out?
Oh, yeah. And this is, I think you were referencing this earlier as something that had been a Vertigo publication, is now being picked up or republished in a new edition. This is a special edition hardcover from a different publisher than Vertigo. In this case is Image, and this is Jason Aaron and Cameron Stewart's The Other Side. So you read this originally through Vertigo?
Yeah, and I think this is the first thing of Jason Aaron's that I ever read, unless I read some like individual issues of superhero comics that he had done before that. But
I think this is my first introduction. Maybe an issue or two of Scalp. No, I read Other Side first.
Scalped hadn't come out yet before The Other Side. Right.
Yeah. I don't think that The Other Side has been published since, I guess, that first Vertigo trade.
Right.
So this is good to see. And I don't even know. I'm just assuming that Vertigo trade has been out of print for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is a great series, and set in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. Telling a story from the point of view of two young soldiers on both sides of the conflict, as it says. So, yeah, I can't recommend this enough.
Yeah, and this is a special edition, so in addition to the original story, you also have various art that is collected. It says it features pictures, drawings, and journal entries from, I guess, their work on this when Cameron Stewart traveled to Vietnam. So it's good. I mean, I don't know if I'll get this just because I have the original, and I don't know if it's worth it for the extra material. But if you're not familiar with this, then you should definitely get it. I think it's affordable, $19.99 for a hardcover edition. You can get it for cheaper at our sponsor, Discount Comic Book Service. And this and Scalp were my introductions to Jason Aaron. So when I originally, it's not this way anymore, but for the longest time when I would think of Jason Aaron, most people would talk about him in terms of his superhero stuff, especially Marvel. I mean, I just didn't think of him in that way. I would think of him as more of a realistic narrative kind of writer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this is good stuff.
Yes. On that next page, 211, there is a trade paperback, Solid State, story by Jonathan Colton and Matt Fraction with art by Albert Montes. Any thoughts on this?
Well, this has been getting a lot of attention since it's been announced, because this is basically a companion graphic novel to Jonathan Colton's upcoming concept album, Solid State.
Okay. And see, I'm not familiar with Jonathan Colton's work. He's, it says in the solicit, musician, singer-songwriter, and internet superstar.
Yeah.
I'm ignorant of all of this.
Oh, yeah. So he and Greg Pak had a hugely successful Kickstarter campaign a few years ago to do comic adaptations of Colton's music. I was first exposed to Colton's work in two places. For the very first time was in the audio book for John Hodgman's The Areas of My Expertise, because Hodgman and Colton are buddies, and the audio book was a complete, was a very different experience than reading the book, because for one thing, Hodgman would interrupt his reading of his own book with music from Jonathan Colton, among other things that interrupted it. And then Colton is the musical kind of co-host of the NPR series Ask Me Another.
Okay.
Which we've talked about actually a long time ago on this podcast.
When we discussed So Buttons, right?
Yes, because
Bayless, it's his wife.
Yeah, his wife is the host of that show, Ophira Eisenberg, and so I love that show. And the stuff Colton does on that show is amazing. Where he'll take an already existing song and change the lyrics as part of the quiz, and you have to guess what the song is about. And it's really, really clever. So Colton's great, and so this has been getting a lot of attention. So I think it's going to be interesting.
This is interesting. You are educating me now on Colton, because almost everything that you had mentioned are facets within the media that I am familiar with, or I have access to, or I've engaged with in some form or another. But in each of those instances, I just didn't pay attention at all to the Colton factor.
Yeah.
So it's like on the periphery of my awareness.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is not the only instance of a musical celebrity in doing a comic in this month's previews.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. I think Colton has a lot of credibility, I think, in this, because he did this other work with Greg Pak, but also that I think his music tends to have a lot of overlap with basically kind of the nerd culture that's in the comics like this too.
And on the next page is the aforementioned New Street Angel. This one by Jim Rugg and Brian Muruka. This is the Street Angel Gang. And as with Street Angel After School Kung Fu Special, it's a hardcover. This one is 40 pages for about $20.
Yep, but Street Angel's great, so I'm looking forward to this as a follow-up to what we just read.
I am too. And last week we did speculate, are we going to see more of these one-shots of Street Angel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And lo and behold, not even a week later, we open the new previews and our question is answered.
Yeah, I'll be really curious then to see if or how these are collected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if these are coming out in hardcover editions, one-shots, I guess they could collect them other ways, but man, I don't know.
Yep.
Just seems like something off there. And that's all I have in the image section. I don't know if you have anything else.
No, I'm done. So I go to the back half of the catalog.
Yes. And where do you begin in the back half after we get through the premier publishers?
Yeah, I go to Aftershock on page 264.
Okay. Yep, I do too.
Do you have it? Okay. And so the first thing there is another new series, and they seem to be putting out new series at a good clip again.
Because there was a lull for a while after their initial series of number ones to launch new series. Then they kind of pulled back a little bit, and now we've seen, I guess, a resurgence over the past few months. Yeah,
and this is Cullen Bunn and Mirko Kolek's Unholy Grail number one, which basically is Cullen Bunn's take on the Arthurian legend. So that's also the backdrop for Mage as well. So we're getting two of these Arthurian stories. But this is I think Cullen Bunn only otherwise has 19 books coming out this month. So.
Yeah. And the cover B, and they have a little image of that on the page as well, is by Francesco Francavilla. That looks really good.
Yeah.
I don't know where you go after that. I have something on 272.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and this is in the alternative comics section. Let me get... I think I passed that page. Yes. Cloud Stories. K. Thor Jensen's Cloud Stories. It says this is the first new collection of comics by K. Thor Jensen since his Red Eye, Black Eye book came out, which they actually are resoliciting a couple of pages later. It says thematically, a small print here, thematically connected journey through the upper atmosphere. It veers wildly between slapstick comedy, creeping horror, and otherworldly fantasy. Drawn in a staggering array of visual styles, which is what you get with Red Eye, Black Eye as well.
Yes. I had that marked. I'm looking forward to that. And in alternative comics, we also have as new issues of Reich is still going, which is great. And Charles Forsman's Slasher, which I'm looking forward to. And Tom Reardon and Marco Ferrari's Killbox Chicago. Right? Or that's American Gothic Press. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Well, I don't
Slasher.
know. Is it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It says on the bottom. So Slasher is the other one, and the resolicit for Red Eye, Black Eye. Yeah. I go next to page 300. Yeah, that's where I am
before
too.
That. Okay.
So Big Planet.
Yes, and this is let me get to that page because I think both of us are looking at PDFs, and sometimes paging through to find the appropriate place isn't the easiest thing. Okay, this is, I guess we could call the title Shit and Piss.
Yeah.
It's, S ## T and P ## S by Tyler Landry. It says a dark journey into the sewage processing plant built on top of the ruins of a failing civilization. The custodian of this horrid place encounters all types of things that could not be in this science fiction adventure.
That should not be.
Or should not be. Oh, again, I'm having I've got to enlarge my PDF because I'm not reading very well. Okay, that's better. What's interesting about this, and we've commented on this one or two times in the past, it seemed as if by the time that something was solicited in previews from Big Planet Retrofit, you and I had already had copies of it because Jared at Big Planet was telling me that for some reason previews would run the solicits after the books originally came out. But apparently it's not the case this time. Either that or we just didn't get a copy of this book.
Yeah. So we haven't seen this book yet, but it does look good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think about anything coming from Big Planet Retrofit is worth checking out, as we've said multiple times on the show.
Yep. I go to 312 next.
Oh, yep, I do too. Great minds think alike, I guess.
There we go. And so this is a new graphic novel from Boom. Jane by Aline Brosh McKenna, who's one of the creators behind Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, the TV series, which I really like, and art illustrated by Ramon K. Perez, who's really also a great artist too. And this is basically a modern updating of Jane Eyre, so I'm on board for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this looks really interesting. And, it's something we could potentially discuss on a future episode. I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't.
Checking it out.
Yep.
Although it's been a long time since I've reread Jane Eyre.
Yeah, I used to teach it when I was teaching the British Literature Survey more regularly than I do now.
Where do you go after that? Anything else in Boom?
No, I jump to Dynamite on 338. So if you have anything before that.
Yeah, before that, there's something that I want to mention in the Cinebook section. Cinebook is not usually a publisher that we reference much on the preview shows. But I want to mention that on page 331, the next volume in the Valerian series, volume 17, Orphan of the Stars, is solicited. And, this summer we have a film version of at least part of the Valerian series from Luc Besson. So, and I think that Edward and I in the coming months may talk about some of the Valerian volumes because of the film this summer.
That's a great idea. I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah. And also I think it's the people at Cinebook have been very kind in putting us on their mailing list. And so they're making it easy for us to do this. And in fact, the publicist got in touch with me just the other day when I told him about this idea. And he said, he was giving me recommendations of earlier volumes to read. And he said, hey, if you guys need them, let me know.
That's great.
That's great when publicists say that to you.
Yes.
But yeah, Cinebooks does a lot of really, really good stuff. And we've talked about, Edward and I, several of their titles in the past.
Yep.
Okay, so Dynamite I go to as well, and there are, I think, three things that really stand out here for me. Which ones, or one, maybe, are you looking at in Dynamite?
Well, I go to 338, so if you have anything before that in Dynamite.
Okay, yeah, before that, on pages 334 and 335 is a new series of theirs, Bettie Page. Mm-hmm. And, it may be a guilty pleasure, but it's nonetheless a pleasure of mine, Bettie Page. I absolutely love almost anything related to Bettie Page. And now they have this new series coming out. It says, she's more than Miss Blaze, but peels more than Miss Emma. She outvamps Vampirella, but she's sweeter than Honey West. She put the mod in model and the bangs in bang bang. So there you go. We have an adventure with Bettie Page.
Yeah, so it's basically meant to be her unpublished adventures in the 1950s, written by David Avallone and drawn by Colton Worley.
Yeah, and as you might imagine, there are a variety of different covers. I mean, not only because it's Dynamite and they tend to do mini covers of things like this, but also it's Bettie Page. And so you know there's going to be cheesecake galore. And in fact, there is one, a black bag variant that you can only see part of on page 335.
Yep.
So there you go. And that image that we have on, I guess this is cover A, that Terry Dodson does, is, a reference to that famous image from Rocketeer.
Right.
Yep. Which is beautiful. I mean, both the original and then this, the Dodson as well.
Yes.
But then there is something worth mentioning for sure on page 338.
Yeah, so Dynamite is continuing some of the cool crossovers that they've been doing with some of their licensed properties, and here we're getting the Green Hornet 66 meets the Spirit. So the Green Hornet from the 1966 TV series that was a companion to the Batman 66 series, and Will Eisner's The Spirit, and was one of 5, written by Fred Van Lente and drawn by Bob Q.
Yeah, I'm on board for anything Spirit, but I'm also going to come to this maybe not suspicious, but perhaps with a reader's chip on my shoulder, asking Van Lente to prove it worth my while. And the reason goes back to something that you and I were discussing a couple of months ago for our episode for Will Eisner Week. We looked at, post-Eisner uses of the Spirit. And, I think both of us mentioned that anytime we do or anytime someone does team ups with, some character in the Spirit, I don't know, it's kind of touch and go. There have been some that have been successful, some that have been just okay. And so that's why I'm not necessarily wary, but I just wonder if this will follow through. Now, I like Fred Van Lente. I love especially his sense of humor, and I think it could serve well here. But I guess I'll have to read to find out if I'm pleased with this. Yeah,
I am looking forward to it. And we've talked about that. I really enjoyed, for example, the Spirit Dick Tracy crossover that ended recently in the Dick Tracy comic strip. So, these things can work. I think that the Spirit in Green Hornet is a pretty straightforward idea. I think it makes sense. Even like, for example, when you look at Ty Templeton's variant cover that's on page 339, he basically has a character that's half Spirit, half Green Hornet, and since they both have similar fashion sense, just with different colors, that alone, I think, makes some sense to bring them together.
Yeah, I do like that variant cover. It's a cover B. And I also like the one right next to it, Javier Pulido's, because that looks like a layout that Eisner himself could have done.
Yeah, that's true. I really like that cover as well. In fact, I'm going to probably have a hard time picking which cover I want, because the main cover by Mike Allred is also really good.
Yeah. Again, something else to potentially talk on a future episode.
Yep.
And then the other thing that I wanted to point out in the Dynamite section is on page 342, and this is a new James Bond series. The first issue, James Bond Kill Chain, #1 of 6. So we've got Andy Diggle back on the James Bond property here in art by Luca Casalanguidia.
Yep. Yeah, this is the team that did Hammerhead, which just wrapped up, which was great. And yeah, I mean, this, I've said it before. I mean, Dynamite's really knocking it out with these James Bond series. And I'm really glad to see that Andy Diggle's going to be doing what looks like to be like a series of miniseries with James Bond. And Casalanguida's art is really good. It really fits this milieu well, and I thought Hammerhead was great. And I think Hammerhead just came out or is coming out soon in a collection. I know we just got the PDF from Dynamite on that. So, but I really like that series.
Yep.
I'd like to do a James Bond show.
Oh, I'd be up for that.
Okay.
Now, are you talking about just the Dynamite stuff from the past year or so, or you're that in addition to other James Bond?
I don't know. There's not a lot, but some. Dark Horse had the property for a while. Well, Eclipse did originally, but they only published a little bit of stuff. They did a Mike Grell series, which was really good. And there's a handful of Dark Horse stuff, but it's not all that great. So I'd be okay limiting to this, and maybe to the Howard Chaykin adaptation of For Your Eyes Only. I don't know. Just kidding. But that's a good. that was from Marvel back in the day. But anyway, yeah. No, I think maybe around the time that the first collection of the regular series volume that Ben Percy's doing right now could be a good time.
Yeah. Well, another idea for a special episode, and without giving away any details, because we need to move on, we can tell listeners that over the past couple of weeks, you and I have been going back and forth via email about ideas for various special episodes of the Comics Alternative that are thematically or title or character based.
Yep.
Yeah. And I also want to thank you, because I think for the rest of the day now, I will have Sheena Easton's theme to For Your Eyes Only in my head.
That's great.
Yeah.
I have a different James Bond theme song in my head almost every day.
Okay. And I have no problem with Sheena Easton. It's just it's going to be in my head for the rest of the day.
Yeah. No, it's a good one. I very often have Lulu's The Man with the Golden Gun in my head.
Whatever happened to Lulu? She's still alive, isn't she?
Yeah, I think actually she's still performing too.
Yeah, I know she had a hit in the 1980s. What was it? You Could Have Been With Me?
I don't remember that. Oh.
Yeah, I think that was her. And that was the last charted song that I think she had. But anything else in Dynamite?
Nope. I'd go to Drawn and Quarterly.
Yeah, and I want to mention Drawn and Quarterly as well, but before, this is more of a drive-by than anything. On page 344 in the Dynamite section, there is an issue number 1 of Skin and Earth, and you remember earlier I mentioned something about other examples of musicians who are coming out with comics in this previews. Here's one as well this is written and drawn by Lights, and I didn't even know who Lights was when I saw this, and I had to look her up. But she is a musician. Do you know who Lights is? I've heard of her, but I'm not. I've never listened to anything. Yeah. So, and then Drawn and Quarterly, big deal.
Yeah. Definitely. We've the
page 360,
Palookaville volume 23, which is going to wrap up Clyde Fans.
Yes.
And when I'd seen Seth at CXC this year, he had announced there that he had just finished Clyde Fans after 20 years.
God, it's been going on forever. And, I can't remember how many times I have gone back to read and reread and reread Clyde Fans from the beginning whenever a new issue of Palookaville with Clyde Fans, a piece of it comes out, because it's not often that, lately I think we've been getting Palookaville about every year around that. So it's a little more consistent, but, even then, that long stretch between installments, I forget some of the nuances of what's been going on with Clyde fans. And so I've been rereading that, and I probably will do the same when issue number or volume 23 of Palookaville comes out, so I can get a good sense of Clyde fans when it's wrapping up.
Yeah. Now, did you say something when you interviewed him that he had mentioned that Drawn and Quarterly is just going to collect all of Clyde fans in one volume? They're not going to follow up the first collection with a second one?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the first book of Clyde fans came out, I think, in 2 different smaller installments, outside of Palookaville proper. And then they collected the first book in one volume, and he said the original idea would be, of course, the second half in another book. But because it's been so long since that other book and, various printing and economic issues involved, they're just going to come out with Clyde fans in one complete volume, which makes sense.
Okay.
Because I think that first book has been out of print for quite a while.
Because I know you can still get it. It's pretty easy to get.
Right. But I mean, are these other people selling them?
No.
So you get, So I guess they have maybe a good number of copies that they still need to sell.
It could be because I know again at CXC they had a lot of copies. Yeah. Well, Amazon says they have one copy left in stock, so maybe that's it.
Yeah,
and then they're gone.
But you also have other volumes of Palookaville solicited in the Drawn and Quarterly section. On the same page, there's volume 20, and then there's 21, and then on the next page is 22. But there's also resolicits from Seth's friend Chester Brown, and also resolicits from Robert Sikoriak.
Yes. Oh, I jumped to Fantagraphics next.
I do as well.
And there we have, just as usual, a lot of stuff. The first thing on there right away is that Fantagraphics is continuing its publication of the Jacques Tardy library with Fog Over Tolbiac Bridge by Tardy and Leo Malay. So this is this is the first of 4 major graphic novels that says adapted by Tardy from the legendary French crime writer Malay, his original Nestor Burma novels. So we'll be looking forward to the other 3 adaptations coming out as well.
Yeah, and in fact, Edward and I have been talking about the possibility of doing a Tardy episode where we look at a lot of this Fantagraphics stuff.
Yeah, it's great. I have the earliest volumes they did in the series. I can't remember what they were called though. One of them was the World War I. Right.
Yeah, and there are a number of them. And they're. It says also available right next to the solicit. There are a number of these titles, but not all of them that Fantagraphics has come out with in the Tardy library. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. And then under that, there is a title, My Pretty Vampire by Katie Skelly. Are you familiar with Skelly's work?
Yeah, I'm familiar. My Pretty Vampire is a self-published series that she did, and I'm really glad that Fantagraphics is putting out a collection of it. I think they're doing with this sort of what they're also going to be doing later with Sophie Goldstein's House of Women, where they're taking a book that had a pretty good solid following as a self-published work, and then collecting it and publishing it this way.
Right, because they're going to take the 3 volumes in the self-published House of Women, Goldstein's House of Women, and then come out with 1 volume. And so this is something similar?
Yeah. And this is something that also was discussed at CXC. Eric Reynolds did a panel on Fantagraphics Anniversary, and Katie Skelly was on the panel with them. And I don't know if they announced it, like if that was the first announcement. It seemed like it was that My Pretty Vampire was coming.
Yeah. See, I'm not familiar with this, but it looks fascinating. It says Clover yearns to be the girl she once was before becoming a fanged bloodsucker and imprisoned by her brother. She plans her escape. The result is a sexy, sophisticated horror romp. And anytime you see the word romp in a solicit, you know you're going to have a good time, right? Mm-hmm. A sexy, sophisticated horror romp that wears its colorful pop sensibility on its sleeve. Katie Skelly's sex-positive attitude and emotionally rich work makes for a wonderfully moody, progressive, and engaging read.
Yeah, this is good. I really I'm glad to see this coming out in this form because I think it may. So unless you've seen Katie Skelly at a convention, it might have been hard to track down My Pretty Vampire. So
yeah, well, it's like what we were talking about with Clunan, right? That self-published stuff. Unless you see her at a con or someplace where she is, and you may have her self-published work, how are you going to find out about this? And so it's good that people like Clunan, Skelly, and Goldstein, their self-published work is finding, major presses to make their work more available.
Right.
We also get on the same page not only the next, it seems like it's never going to end, in Fantagraphics EC Creator Series, but also another all-time comics, this one, Crime Destroyer #2.
Yeah, and so Josh had talked about that there's going to be a second wave of all-time comics books with the #2 issue, starting with the #2 issue of Crime Destroyer. So that's great to see that coming out already.
Yep. And then if we turn the page, 367, there are definitely a couple things there worth mentioning. A new edition of Charles Forsman's The End of the Fucking World. So there's that.
Yeah, which is getting adapted as a Netflix series, which I think is going to be interesting. But, Charles Forsman's having a good year with that and Slasher and new collection of Revenger books.
Yeah, and in fact, I think on an upcoming episode, you and I are going to be discussing his new Revenger in the Fog.
Yes, which is great.
Mm-hmm. So there's that to look forward to. Also solicited on that page is 10,000 Years in Hell, which is another publication that Fantagraphics is doing from M. Trillo, a translation. And their first one, Murder by High Tide, which you can also get. It's got information about that one. That was quite a number of years ago.
Yeah, 2011. So it's been. I wonder if a lot of the translations that Fantagraphics was putting out were spearheaded by Kim Thompson. So I wonder if I would guess so. His death has held up, some of these series.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So anything else in Fantagraphics?
Nope.
Yeah. On page 368, there is First Second, and they're just 2 solicits, but definitely both of them are worth mentioning. There's the 3rd volume in Jason Shiga's Demon, and then another one that looks really interesting. This is Nick Abradstis and Gerald Dye's Pigs Might Fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that looks like something that may be closer. And Nick Abradstis did Leica, right?
Right.
And so it might be another good kind of all ages series or book from him.
Yeah, and it could be something that Paul and Gwen will discuss on the Young Reader Show. Now, I did, because I didn't even request this, but I got a review copy of Pigs Might Fly, and it looks really good.
Oh, good.
I haven't read it, but the art, I've looked through it, and it's beautiful art.
Good. I didn't get that, so.
So where do you go after first, second?
374.
Yep, I do as well.
To G13. And speaking of things that we just got copies of, Christophe Chabout's Alone, translation of the French graphic novel, is one of the, G13 I think is doing a good job too of putting out translations of French graphic novels. They did Dominique Oblay's work recently, right? No, that was New York Review
No, that
Books.
was New York.
Yeah. Never mind.
No, Gallery 13. I mean, I think their first, if I'm not mistaken, is Roughneck, Jeff Lemire's Roughneck, which just came out. And we're going to be talking with Jeff on an upcoming interview show about that.
Right.
And they haven't really done that much. I find this interesting in terms of the timing, because Edward and I have decided that we don't know for certain, but we'll probably discuss Chabout's Moby Dick adaptation in an upcoming episode. And that came out earlier this year from Dark Horse. And so now there's this one. So it's conceivable if we wait, we could even do an episode devoted to him.
Right. And and I just got the advanced review copy of this. Did you get it?
I haven't gotten it yet.
Okay.
But then again, you're on the East Coast, so it's coming from New York, and you tend to get things before I do.
Yeah, and it just came like Friday, I think. So, yeah, so I paged through this, and I'm really curious about it. So,
yeah.
It's on my stack of stuff to read.
Yeah. And how long is that stack?
Yeah, I don't want to even get there. Okay, so I jumped to 390. I don't know if you have anything before then.
I don't, but it's in this general section that begins on page 389 that I guess there's no single title there that I wanted to focus on, but I wanted us to talk in kind of a broad sense about Lionforge. Because last month, you weren't able to do the preview show, and I did it with Paul, and he and I talked a little bit about what Lionforge is doing with all of these imprints. And in fact, some of these publishers we didn't even know were part of Lionforge now, or if they had been for a while. And so I was curious what you knew about Lionforge, what you had heard.
Nothing. Okay. This is all I know about it. So there's Lionforge, Roar, and Cub House. Is that what you're seeing?
There is
Catalyst Prime.
Catalyst Prime. There's also Roar. Just looking through here, because there are a number of them. Yeah, Cub House. And there was one from last month that I don't see, and I can't remember which one or two those were. But I'm curious about what Lionforge is doing in a broad sense, right? With all of these imprints and how they're maybe organizing things. I mean, what imprints may specialize in what kind of titles for what kind of audiences? Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. And I guess if I really wanted to find out, I would have looked it up more. But I think of all of the titles in the Lionforge section, the one that I think you wanted to mention, Superb, is the one that would stand out for me.
Yeah, because this is written by David Walker, who's done a lot of great stuff, especially for Marvel lately with Power Man and Iron Fist and Nighthawk and so on. And Sheena Howard, who who's an academic who did the edited the Black Comics collection that won an Eisner Award, the collection of essays on Black Comics from Bloomsbury. So I think that's an interesting team up there. Someone with a strong academic background. Well, David Walker also has taught comics as well. So, and this is about a teenager named Kayla Tate who is forced to move back to her hometown of Youngstown, Ohio. An event designated level 5 impact zone. Compared to her new life, returning to Youngstown is a step backwards. She has strained relationships with her childhood friend. School is a nightmare, and everyone is talking about the mysterious superhero and internet sensation Cosmosis and his nighttime battles against the supposedly benevolent corporation Foresight. So, I'll be curious at looking at that individual issue, and it does. The solicit does also point us to a website for Lion Forge and Catalyst Prime that will probably give us more information on kind of the mission behind this imprint.
Mm-hmm. After that, I go to Oni.
Yeah.
On page 402.
Yep.
Do you have anything? Okay,
Yep.
so you go there as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is something from someone that we talked to just recently, Kyle Starks, and this is Kill Them All. He kickstarted this, what was it, a couple years ago?
No, like maybe
2,
a year ago, not very long ago at all.
Wow, okay. And so now we get it from Oni.
Yes.
And he'd even mentioned this when we talked with him.
Right. So if you didn't get a chance to kickstart this, definitely check it out, especially if you're a fan of Sex Castle. This is on a level with that.
Yeah. I mean, the solicit describes it that way as well. It says, the new gonzo graphic novel love letter to 90s action movies by Eisner-nominated cartoonist Kyle Starks. A betrayed murderess wants revenge. A hard-drinking former cop wants his job back. For either to get what they want, they're going to have to fight their way through 15 flights of criminals, assassins, drug lords, murderers, even accountants, and kill them all.
Yes.
So Kyle Stark's goodness.
Yep.
Do you have anything else in Oni?
No.
Okay. I next go to page 416.
I wanted to stop at 408 for a second.
Sure.
Because Paper Cuts is putting out a new Gumby series. But what's crazy about it is that this first issue is written by Ray Fox and Kyle Baker.
Oh my God. I didn't even see this.
So I didn't originally either. Rick Geary does one of the covers, and Rick Geary does the cover. He did the earlier Gumby comics. Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. I didn't even see this. Again, something else that I overlooked.
I wouldn't, I don't know if I'm going to get it, but it is odd.
Fox, Baker. Yeah.
So then I go to 416.
Okay. And 416, we get, under Simon & Schuster, a comics adaptation of Pearl S. Buck's The Good Earth.
Yep.
And this, Nick Bertozzi, who has done quite a number of adaptations.
Yeah, and I think I would have passed this by because The Good Earth isn't a thing I'm interested in an adaptation of, but I like Nick Bertozzi's work, so that makes it something I want to check out.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, that is something that, and who knows, maybe that's another one we could potentially talk about on a future episode.
Well, if there's, with the Jane Eyre book, maybe adaptations can come up again.
Yeah. I go next to the Titan Comics section.
So do I.
Okay. What page are you on?
437. So if you have anything before that, go ahead.
Yeah. On 424, there is a solicit for The Death of Stalin.
Oh, yeah.
This is written by Fabian Nuri with art by Thierry Robin and Lauriane Olriere. And I'm probably butchering that name. But this is something that will be coming out soon in theaters.
Yeah. Who is the let's see, and Armando Iannucci, who does Veep and did the Thick of It, one of my favorite TV series in England, and then the film sequel, I guess, to the Thick of It, In the Loop.
Mm-hmm. And so on page 425, you get a list of some of the cast, including Steve Buscemi, and the cast member who got my attention more than anyone, Michael Palin.
Yeah. So I was curious about this because, so this is, that based on this true story, I guess, when Joseph Stalin has a stroke, the political gears begin to turn, plunging the superstate into darkness, uncertainty, and near civil war. So Iannucci's work, on Veep and the Thick of It is very much about the kind of behind the scenes stuff that goes on in politics. And so that description does seem right up his alley, but he's also hilarious comedy writer. So I'm wondering if this is going to be a comedy, and with actors like Jeffrey Tambor and Michael Palin in it, it does seem like it has the definite possibility of being a comedy.
Right. Now, have you been watching the current season of Veep?
Oh yeah,
over the past few weeks. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I love it. I actually got caught up last night and was laughing really hard at it.
Yeah. I like it, and I absolutely love the series Veep, but what are we, 2, and as of tonight, as we record this, I think 3 episodes into the current season. I'm waiting for the traction to kick in. I like it well enough, but it doesn't have the impact as the previous seasons have. And I find myself laughing less out loud than I had in the earlier ones. And I don't know if it's the fact that, the character is where she is right now, but I still enjoy it.
Yeah. I just like the whole idea of the, following Selena in her post-presidency time after having only been president for a year. But I also love that this gives an opportunity for us to see Jonah as the senator.
He's bald now.
Yeah.
Because of testicular cancer, right?
Well,
supposedly.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway. So I'm really curious to see how this movie is, and I'll probably check out the graphic novel as well. Okay.
Where do you go after the death of Stalin? You say you had something else in Titan?
Yeah. I just want to go to page 437. Do you have anything before that?
I do not.
And this is that, they're collecting Mandrake the Magician by Lee Falk, the Fred Fredericks period, which is great. That's great on its own. But next to that is a collection of the best of Croc. Do you remember Croc?
Oh yeah, definitely. I used to read Croc.
I recently found at a library fundraiser book sale some mass market paperback of Croc, and I got to revisit it pretty recently, and I have to say, the best of Croc is probably something of an overstatement. Because it's set in the French Foreign Legion, but it's basically kind of a Wizard of Id, BC knockoff. So I was surprised to learn that Croc went all the way to 2011.
Wow.
From 1975 to 2011. So there's 41 years of that strip. And anyway, I thought it would have ended a long time ago, but
I would have as well.
So anyway, I'm not going to get that. I feel like I have all the crock I need.
Yeah.
But curious that that's being collected for posterity.
Yep. Well, there's something for everyone out there.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else in Titan?
I don't have anything else. I'm done.
Period. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple of other things left on, let me see, page 456. This is under Vault Comics. And I mentioned this because I've heard over the past several months so many people talk about this title. We have, the individual issues have been coming out. Now we get the first volume of Natasha Altisi's Heathen. And I first heard about this from some of the people who, go to the my local shop, Valhalla Games and Comics. And in fact, the manager of that shop sings the praises of Heathen whenever she gets the opportunity. And then other customers there have said the same thing. And I've also heard on other comics-related podcasts, people mention Heathen. I have not read one issue of it. Have you?
No, I hadn't even heard of it before this.
Yeah. And I think, unless I'm mistaken, Vault Comics is a fairly recent, I guess relatively speaking, press. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I haven't started hearing about Vault Comics until the past few months. But anyway, it's something that I've heard a lot of people mention. It's worth checking out. So that's solicited on page 456, the first trade. And on that next page, on 457, in the vertical section, Vertical Comics, is Mikoto's Shinkei and Toshiba's Yamaguchi's She and Her Cat. This looks interesting. Every now and again, we will discuss a vertical title on our monthly manga series. And this is one that I think we could potentially put into the mix as well. It says that it's adapted from a television series. She and Her Cat is a slice-of-life story of loneliness, sadness, and eventually perseverance expressed by a young woman many people can relate with. On a rainy spring day, a young woman finds a cat she would come to call Chobi outside and brings him home with her. Chobi falls in love with the owner because of her kindness and beauty. On an autumn day, she has a long conversation over the phone. When it's over, she cries and becomes depressed. Time goes on and it becomes winter. She continues going to work and moves on with her life. Okay, not an uplifting solicit, granted, but it seems something worth checking out.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to look at it.
Yep.
And then that's all I have in the comics section. There are a couple of titles in the books section that comes right after.
Okay.
I don't know. The first one, let me get to that page, is on page 476. And this is Headlight's Honeys, the perfect pair in vintage paperbacks, pulps, and comics. And what first got my attention of this book is, well, I guess the obvious. But then I looked at the cover, and this is something that Monte Beauchamp has pulled together. Mm-hmm. And he does a lot of really good things. This is coming out from Carunos Publishing, which I don't know if it's an imprint of Simon & Schuster or it's distributed through Simon & Schuster, but I've seen it associated with Simon & Schuster. And it says it's once celebrated by skilled painters and sculptors throughout the history of art. With the advent of the industrial age and assembly line production, scores of MAM's merchandisers soon got it in the act. There was a time, however, when their low-budget portrayal in comic books, paperbacks, and pulps came under fervid assault and effectively squelched by the media censors. Headlight Honeys assembles dozens of rare, salacious cover examples and delivers the scoop on this harrowing pre-code era in American publishing.
Okay.
So there's that. And if you didn't get it the first time around, Abrams is coming out with an anniversary edition of Evaniers' Kirby King of Comics.
Yep. I have that on my coffee table in my office.
Yeah, I can't remember what my copy is, but it's not on a coffee table. So there you go, our romp through the May Previews catalog.
Yep. That was a lot.
It was a lot. When I first came up with my list, I thought, this is not going to be that long of an episode.
No, I came up with my list. I said, oh, crap, this is going to be a long episode. So.
Okay. I guess I was living in Fantasyland.
Yeah.
Yep. So a lot of good stuff there. As Andy pointed out at the top of the show, you can find all of these titles at really good discounts at Discount Comic Book Service. They are our sponsor. We use them. We think you should as well. Head on over to dcbservice.com. They'll take care of all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do get your titles there, please be sure to get in touch with us and let us know what you thought about this week's episode. If you go to our website, comicsalternative.com, you'll find that you could leave us a voice message online via SpeakPipe. Or you can call us the old-fashioned way by picking up the phone and dialing 415-3-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427.
That's right. Or you can get a hold of us by email. We are two guys at comicsalternative.com. Or you can get a hold of us individually. I'm Andy at comicsalternative.com.
And I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com.
And we also have our Twitter feed, which is at @2 guys with PhDs.
That's right. You can also find us on Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Google+, Goodreads, Pinterest, and YouTube. You can subscribe to the Comics Alternative through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can also find us on TuneIn, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, and on Google Play Music. But you can find every single one of our podcast episodes, as well as the reviews and comics-related commentary that we post on our blog, simply by going to our website, comicsalternative.com.
That's right. All the ways to get a hold of us, let us know how we're doing, and find out what we're doing.
That's right. Last month when Paul and I did the April preview show, we commented on how long that episode was. And one of us said, when Andy's not a part of the show, it tends to go longer. Well, I think that this episode disproves that because we've been going for a little over 2 hours now.
Yeah. Yep. And I got to get something to eat.
Yeah. So we are off to digest, but we hope that you have enjoyed this show. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy. See ya.